Have you ever wondered what the world was actually like when Jesus was born? We often see nativity scenes with shepherds and wise men, but what was happening on the world stage? Let's take a journey back in time, around 2,000 years ago, to the year we now call 1 AD, or more accurately, around 4 BC. This wasn't a quiet, peaceful time. It was an era of colossal empires, political intrigue, and cultural clashes that shaped the very ground Jesus would walk on. The dominant force, the superpower of the day, was the Roman Empire. Imagine an empire stretching from the rainy isles of Britain all the way to the deserts of Mesopotamia, encompassing the entire Mediterranean Sea, which they called Mare Nostrum, our sea. This vast territory was home to an estimated 50 to 60 million people, a quarter of the world's population at the time. And who was in charge of this massive empire? The one and only Caesar Augustus. His birth name was Octavian, and he was the adopted son of the legendary Julius Caesar. After a series of brutal civil wars that ended the Roman Republic, Augustus emerged as the first Roman emperor. He was a master politician. He ushered in a period of relative peace and stability known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. This peace, however, was maintained by the iron fist of the Roman legions. Augustus centralized power, reformed the tax system, built magnificent roads and aqueducts, and established a professional army loyal only to him. His reign was so transformative that he famously boasted he found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble. So, when the Bible mentions a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered, this was the man. This census wasn't just a head count. It was a tool for taxation and control, a classic move by a powerful, organized ruler. Now, let us zoom in from the grand scale of Rome to the specific region where our story unfolds, Judea. This land, the ancient homeland of the Jewish people, was a Roman province, but it wasn't directly ruled by a Roman governor just yet. Instead, Rome employed a strategy of using client kings, local rulers who were loyal to Rome and kept the peace. And the client king of Judea was one of the most infamous figures in history, Herod the Great. Herod was not ethnically Jewish in the traditional sense. He was an Idumean, which made many of his Jewish subjects suspicious of him. He was placed on the throne by the Romans, and his loyalty was to them first and foremost. Herod was a paradox. On one hand, he was a brilliant builder. He undertook massive construction projects, the most famous being the lavish and magnificent expansion of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. It was said to be one of the wonders of the ancient world. He also built fortresses like Masada and the port city of Caesarea Maritima. But on the other hand, he was a deeply paranoid and ruthless tyrant. He executed several of his own family members, including his wife Mariamne and 3 of his sons, because he feared they were plotting against him. So, when the Gospel of Matthew tells us about King Herod ordering the massacre of infants in Bethlehem after hearing of a newborn king of the Jews, it's chillingly consistent with his known character. This was a man who would stop at nothing to protect his power. Life for the average person in Judea was lived under the shadow of these 2 powerful figures, the distant, but all-powerful Emperor Augustus, and the immediate, terrifying presence of King Herod. Roman soldiers were a common sight, a constant reminder of who was really in charge. Taxes were heavy, collected by local tax collectors who were often despised for collaborating with the Romans. The Jewish people themselves were not a monolithic group. There was a lot of internal tension and division. The Sadducees were the priestly aristocracy, often wealthy and collaborating with the Romans to maintain their power and the temple status quo. The Pharisees were more of a lay movement, respected for their scholarship and strict observance of Jewish law. They were hugely influential among the common people. Then there were the Essenes, a more mystical and ascetic group, who likely lived in communities like the one at Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And there were the Zealots, revolutionaries who believed in armed resistance against Rome and looked for a military messiah to liberate Israel. This melting pot of religious and political ideas created a powerful sense of expectation. Many were longing for a messiah, a promised deliverer, but what that messiah would look like was a matter of intense debate. Would he be a king like David, a priest, or a great teacher? Now, let's pan our camera eastward. Beyond the Roman frontier lay another superpower, the Parthian Empire. Centered in what is now Iran and Iraq, the Parthians were Rome's great rivals. They were famous for their skilled horse archers, who could famously shoot arrows backward while retreating, the Parthian shot. Rome and Parthia were in a constant state of cold, and sometimes hot, war. They were two superpowers vying for control of the Middle East. It's from this eastern direction, from the east, that the Bible says the Magi, or wise men, came. These were likely Parthian astrologers or priests, perhaps from the Zoroastrian tradition. Their journey into Roman territory to seek a newborn king would have been a major political event, fraught with danger and suspicion. Imagine high-ranking officials from a rival superpower showing up unannounced in your capital. It would have been incredibly alarming for someone as paranoid as Herod. And what about the rest of the world? Further east, in India, the Kushan Empire was beginning to rise, controlling the lucrative Silk Road trade routes that connected the East and West. They were creating a fascinating blend of Hellenistic, Indian, and Central Asian cultures. In China, the Han Dynasty was enjoying a golden age of stability and prosperity, comparable to the Pax Romana. They were making incredible advancements in science, technology, and the arts. These vast empires were connected by a network of trade routes. Silk from China, spices from India and Arabia, and grain from Egypt all flowed across the globe. So, the world of Jesus' birth was not an isolated one. It was interconnected by trade, politics, and the movement of ideas. Culturally, the entire region was steeped in Hellenism. This was the legacy of Alexander the Great's conquests centuries earlier. Greek was the common language of trade, scholarship, and government across the Eastern Mediterranean, much like English is today. Even though the Romans were in political control, Greek culture, its philosophy, art, and language, was dominant. The Jewish scriptures themselves had been translated into Greek in a version called the Septuagint. This is why the New Testament was written in Greek, not Hebrew or Aramaic, to reach the widest possible audience in this Hellenized world. Jesus and his disciples would have spoken Aramaic in their daily lives, likely knew some Hebrew for religious purposes, and would have been exposed to Greek and Latin, the languages of commerce and empire. So, when we place the birth of Jesus into this historical context, the story becomes even more profound. He was not born into a mythical fairy tale land, but into a real, complex, and often brutal world. He was born a subject of the Roman Empire, under the reign of the powerful Augustus. He was born in a land ruled by the paranoid tyrant Herod the Great. He was born among a people, the Jews, who were deeply divided but united in their fervent hope for a Messiah. He was born into a world where superpowers clashed, cultures mixed, and ideas traveled along dusty trade routes. The Christmas story is the story of a seemingly small event in a tiny, overlooked corner of a vast and powerful empire. But as history shows, this small event would eventually change the course of that empire, and indeed, the entire world. It is a reminder that the most significant events in history don't always happen in the palaces of emperors, but sometimes in the humblest of places. Thanks for joining me on this historical journey. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration into the past. See you next time.